Hey guys, I've recently discovered this thread and have decided to tell you about a creepy event that had happened to me not too long ago. So, before I start, let me tell you a little bit about myself and give you some backstory. I am a 15-year-old straight male. I live in Germany, but I come from a small European country. This event had happened before my removal to Germany. In my country, we have field trips, usually at the end of 8th grade, that last for a week or so. Now, I've had my fair share of stalkers, but nothing like this. It was September in 2014, and I went to a field trip to an island with my class. I was 14 at the time. There was this girl, Jane. Jane used to be a normal girl up until that point. She was always kind of shy and really kept to herself, but everybody liked her. She was never bullied or anything, just a normal shy girl. We used to chat on Facebook a little bit, but nothing serious. I never really harbored any feelings towards her, neither in her favor nor against her. So, back to the field trip. I've smoked a couple of cigarettes with my mates in our hotel room, and then we went outside. The teacher wanted to show us some plants that were specific to that area. Now, I noticed that Jane was talking to me more often than before, and that she had walked very near me, but I thought that was merely a coincidence. I didn't make a fuss about it. But as time went by, the things had started to get worse. She started touching me, hugging me, and following me, respectively. On the third day, we went on a cruise to a nearby island, and during the cruise, she was sitting next to me. She had a camera and was taking pictures of me. I've had zero sense of restraint at that point since I was young, and I didn't think much of it. I've noticed that she was taking a suspicious amount of photos, mostly of me, and I told her to calm down. And then she talked to me for an hour, but she didn't say anything interesting. She was mimicking the Irish and British accents to me, and basically blabbering stuff for approximately an hour. I was just smiling and replying with, "That's nice." In the following days, she started to hug me and made me feel uncomfortable. So one day, I came to her and told her that we needed to talk in private. We went to the woods and I asked her if she was in love with me. She denied and kept saying that there had to be a misunderstanding, but I knew that there was something off about her. And then she told me her life story. She said that her mother is a schizophrenic and that she's severely depressed about it. I felt sorry for her, but I still told her that the touching was inappropriate. During our conversation, my mates wondered where I was and organized a searching party for me. They found us eventually, but she had decided to stay behind and let me go. I have no idea what she was doing after I left. On one occasion, I'm a little fuzzy on the details, sorry. She came into our hotel room asking for water, as if there wasn't any water in her own room. However, when she got the requested water, she refused to leave the room. We got rid of her by telling her that we're going out to have some fun. The next day, the harassing got even worse. She would follow me around and hug me again. The peak of her abnormal behavior happened in the evening. I took a walk with a friend of mine and turned around briefly, only to see her behind us. She was following us, I kid you not. I've never felt this kind of dread in my whole life. We had made our way down the shore and hid behind a big rock next to a police station. "We should go inside and tell the police that we have a stalker," my friend joked. Anyway, she couldn't find us and gave up finally. My best friend heard the story and went to her room to tell her to screw off. I was infuriated with him because it was rude of him, regardless of her actions. I'm usually not meek, but I thought that was horrible. Now I see that no matter how cruel that was, it was the right thing to do. I went to her room and apologized for my friend's actions. She was in her bed, sobbing uncontrollably, and I calmed her down and went outside. A female friend of mine, Sarah, had invited me to come to her room so we could discuss something. I made my way to her room and saw two other girls there. We sat on the chairs in her balcony and she had told me that Jane is a very depressed person who has done some self-harming in the past. I was shocked when I heard that. So, amidst our conversation, I winced. I raised my look and saw Jane, maybe 50 meters, 165 feet away, just sitting on a rock, listening to music and staring at me. She had a solemn look in her eyes. I suddenly felt dismay and told my friends that we have a spectator. They went to and we decided to pry on her a little bit before backing out of the bedroom. "Just stay away from her," was the last thing Sarah told me before I left. And to my luck, it was the end of our field trip and I finally got some rest. Weird encounters with her became fewer and fewer because she was often absent from school. Later, I had found out that she had overdosed on sleeping pills a couple of times but survived all of them. There was even a rumor that she had ended up in a psychiatric institution, but I have no proof of that, so I can't tell you that correctly. Anyway, the point of this story is that sometimes you have to be rude so you can prevent something like this happening to you. It may seem cruel or might even hurt the other person, but in the end, it's your life and you have to stand up for yourself and make sure that you're happy. So, this happened back in 6th grade and I think it's the closest that I've ever come to dying. At the school I went to, we always used to have some big end-of-the-year field trip. We would usually go to some city and look at all the important or historic buildings, have lunch, learn some stuff, and then leave. That year, we were going to New York and me and a couple of friends planned out what we wanted to do. We wanted to go do our own thing, go shopping, get some new clothes, that kind of thing. Only when we got to the school the next day, the teachers made it really clear that we had to stick with the group. But since we were all stupid, rebellious 6th graders, we decided that we would just have to work around it. On the ride to New York, me, my friend Olivia, and my friend Devin decided that we were going to leave the group and do whatever we wanted. Our class was pretty big, almost 60 of us because they put 5, 6, and 7 together. So we thought if we weren't gone too long, nobody would notice. We had brought money and we planned on buying tons of stuff, because even though we were a big class, we lived in a small town with only a couple of stores. Olivia loved shopping and she had really researched the area that we were going to be around, and picked out all of the good stores. She even made us a little map. She was good at that kind of stuff. Anyways, when we got to New York, Devin chickened out because his parents were pretty strict, and he didn't want to get his phone taken away again. Olivia and I decided that he could just give us his money and we could buy the stuff for him, and so we did that. And after they herded everybody off the bus, we kind of lingered back. We were right about them being distracted by everyone else, because we got away no problem. Olivia's map worked out pretty good, and we were gone probably 10 or 20 minutes before stuff started getting scary. We had just left the store, and Olivia was carrying her shopping bags when this guy noticed us. It probably wasn't hard to pick us out. 2 little 6th graders walking around alone, carrying a ton of clothing. He started calling out to us, saying how he could buy us more clothes, all the jewelry that we wanted, if we would just come with him. We didn't believe him, of course, and we just kept walking, heading on to the next store. Only this guy wouldn't stop talking. He started following us now, and getting kind of upset that we wouldn't answer him. I told him to screw off because I thought that he would take a hint. There were tons of people around and we figured he couldn't really kidnap us in front of 200 people. But he kept following us, and he started getting a lot closer. He had probably been about 30 or 40 yards back when we could barely see him over the other people, but now he was only 15 or 20 feet. And that's when we started panicking because crap, there was this weirdo after us and we had no idea where the group was. We decided to split off from the sidewalk and head down into some alley, because we figured people would call out the guy if he started to follow us. But of course, it was New York and everybody else was wrapped up in their own little problems. So now we're walking down this dark alley and this guy is still after us. He fell a little bit back, probably back to about 30 feet now, but now he's not pretending to be a good guy. He's talking about how he's going to kill us and how they'll never find our bodies, and how much fun he's going to have with us. And he's smiling this deranged grin the whole time. We're both on the verge of tears now, because we figure this freaking psychopath is going to kill us. Olivia just decides to drop her stuff and yells, "Run!" And so we both start running. And we're probably about halfway through this alley. But then she turns around and she screams. So I turn around and I see this psychopath is running after us now too. And he has a knife. We're both screaming now, and I'm running faster than I ever had before. We just run out of this alley back into this crowd of people. And as we try to get into this group of people to make sure this guy can't stab us to death, I turn around and he's just standing back in the alley, smiling. And I turn back around and this random lady is asking what's wrong because we're both sobbing. And Olivia's dress is ripped and I'm bleeding because my arm scraped the wall. And we're crying so hard that we can't talk. As soon as we actually manage to talk, we tell her our school. And she looks it up and calls them and we somehow manage to find our group again. And we're both forced to stay right next to the teachers because they don't trust us anymore. And honestly, I don't blame them. We didn't even tell them about the man though. And as soon as I got home, I'm grounded and my phone was taken away. But still, nobody but Olivia and I knows about that man. School ends a couple of days later and I get my phone back. So I text Olivia and she sends me a picture of our class in front of some important building and says, "Look in the bottom left corner." And that man is in it. Mostly hidden behind some wall, but you can still see his face, smiling that deranged grin for the camera. We never really talked about the man again. I didn't want to bring it up and Olivia didn't either. I'm terrified of cities now though. I like to stick to a couple of towns near me and that's it. There's a lower chance of getting stabbed to death. Okay, so basically, I was in high school and I had a friend who was 4 years my senior, referring to him as Ronaldo. Now, Ronaldo and I met during a school production and we got close. He treats me like a sister and I treat him like a brother. So, we hang out a couple of times in school and he would always smuggle me food from outside, because he has senior privileges. Cue his creepy friend, AJ. So, AJ is Ronaldo's friend and they are the same age. I met him on a school trip and he was nice and all. I didn't know that many people and I hoped to be acquainted with my fellow schoolmates, some of which were older and some who were my age. So, I ended up engaging in small talk with him, and trying to be as friendly as possible. It turns out that he and Ronaldo were friends, sort of. And that would mean that when Ronaldo and I hang out, he might tag along. Especially if we are in a group of other friends, all of them who are older than me. So being polite, I would talk to him and make sure that he was a part of the conversation, and he didn't feel left out with so many people around. I think about 7 other people. He graduates and then I don't see him, but he added me on Facebook, where he would message me on occasion and I didn't think anything of it. Until one day he came back for an alumni event about 3 years later. I was at school late, supporting a friend who had a recital. As that was a formal event, I wore a dress and I put on some makeup. So there he is, catching me out of nowhere as I happened to walk by, and he said that I looked great and that we should hang out sometime, which I didn't think was odd at the time. And I said maybe, and promptly left because I knew the recital was starting soon. Now, this is the part that gets really creepy. He starts messaging me, asking me to hang out, but I tell him that I was busy. And out of nowhere, he said, "By the way, you looked so sexy in that outfit I saw you in." And I was like, okay, thank you, I guess. But I was a little put off, so I stopped talking to him. He then starts to send me lots of messages every other day to see if I was free. I kept telling him that I wasn't until he messaged me and asked me out on a date. The thing that irked me though was how he asked me. This is what he said. I haven't stopped thinking about you since that field trip. You were so cute and so pretty, and the way we talked, I knew I felt something. Now that I have spent some time in college, I have to say that I've grown up into a man and have plucked up the courage to ask you to be my girlfriend. I can't stop thinking about you, especially in that dress. I'm coming back for the summer, so hopefully we can see each other and go out for drinks and maybe something more. I told him that though, I was flattered. I had no interest in seeing anyone and was focused on my studies. and I was busy doing student council and cheerleading. So he said that it was fine and that he would wait for me. The creep factor went up as he started to message me daily on Facebook, Skype, Instagram, and any other way that he could get to me, asking me if I had changed my mind. I kept telling him no, but he kept persisting. Eventually, these messages would turn into voice calls, which soon became video calls because he wanted to see that pretty face of mine. When I stopped responding to his advances, he started leaving me lewd messages about how he would treat me like a queen, and what kind of sex we would have and how attractive I was as an Asian, compared to other Asians, which is frankly quite racist. So, I did what any other person would do in this situation. I blocked him from everything. That is, after telling him no. I wasn't interested at least 8 billion times. Now, I thought it would all stop, but then he proceeds to make at least 5 other accounts on all social media platforms, and tries to friend me on Facebook, which I rejected, and follow me on Instagram, which is private, so I didn't accept, and message me on Skype. I had to block all 5 of his other accounts. His number is not inclusive of his original, and I started telling Ronaldo about my situation. Being the big bro that he is, he said that he'll make sure that AJ would leave me alone, which he did for a bit before I get an anonymous text saying I was a bitch and that I would regret saying no to him, and that he would find me. I proceeded to block that number too and changed my settings to reject all calls and messages from unknown numbers. Last I heard, he was pestering some other friends in the group about me, but that got nowhere because Ronaldo was looking out for me and told everyone what was up. I am now in a different continent pursuing higher education, and I swear to God, I hope I never see him again. In my graduation year in high school, my class went to a trip to a beach town. I was always a loner in school, and the only friend I had in school didn't go to this trip. I never interacted much with my classmates. At a point in this trip, we, about 21 people, were left in a famous seaside street filled with bars and restaurants. We were allowed to be free and have fun and eat and drink wherever we wanted. It was nighttime, and we could do as we pleased in that street until midnight. My classmates started grouping up and choosing places to eat and drink, and despair took over me as I hated grouping up. As always, I was alone and decided to wander around and find a place to have dinner by myself. Looking at the restaurants, I found a really cute one that served artisanal pasta, and it was empty. An old man was almost begging people to come take a look. I was such a good guy before this trip that I couldn't say no to not eating there, and I made the old guy and the owner happy. As I ate my tagliatelle with octopus, the worst dish I ever had, a hobo sat at the floor by me and started chatting. I was eating outside. I was such a good guy that I thought, oh, I don't need to pretend that he's invisible. He's a person just like me, and I chatted with him. He asked if the food was good and chatty things like this. When the owner saw the hobo, he came right at him, yelling at him to leave. I was like, no, it's fine, we're just talking, and they gave up. The hobo said that he was hungry and if I could buy him food, and I said yes. I told him that he had a restaurant that he really liked and he would like food from there. I offered him money. He denied and said that he couldn't buy the food himself because the people there don't like him. So I said sure, let me finish here and I'll go buy it for you. He waited patiently. After I was finished, he guided me to the said restaurant. We passed by the more populous part of the street where some of the others were, and a classmate that I should allow myself to call a friend now asked where I was going with the hobo. I said that I was going to buy him food and that it was okay. She didn't appear to accept it, but I proceeded following the hobo. It was getting farther away, the street was becoming darker and it was with less restaurants. I told the hobo, are you sure it's around here? There doesn't appear to be any more restaurants. And he assured me that it was just around the corner. Just as we exchanged these words, I hear someone screaming my name in the distance. It was that friend. Michael, what are you doing there? Come back here right now. She appeared really distressed. Still clueless, I thought she also needed my help or had something to tell me. I told the hobo that my friend was calling and that I needed to go over there. But we're almost there. I have to go, and I ran to her. She said, "Are you crazy? Are you out of your mind? I've been asking around and that guy is a really dangerous criminal around here. Come right back with me." And I was saved that day by my friend for what could have been a horrible end to me, or worse.